Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Silent Majority Politics YouTube channel. To start, I would like to ask you to please hit the subscribe button if you like the content, and we will get started with today's video. Today, we will be looking at how the United States of America could very well be making a turn away from the intentions of its great founding fathers. Before we can discuss this change to this nation, we have to look at how the United States of America became a nation through the events that led up to it. The first one, as we know, the United States of America started a revolution through the colonies. But first, we have to look at the events that caused reason for this revolution. First, the 13 colonies fought greater control from the British government. This control was put out through the Intolerable Acts, the Stamp Act, and the Boston Massacre. And lastly, the first major defiance of this greater control was the Boston Tea Party. First, we will start looking at the Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts were laws passed by British Parliament to punish colonists for defying against the Tea Party Act. The next one we will look at is the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act was a new tax imposed by the British government on any printed paper. Colonists viewed it as an unfair taxation and had no say over the tax rate that was enforced. The next one is the Boston Massacre. This was an attack on colonists by British soldiers on March 5th, 1770 for protesting. And the first act of defiance was the Boston Tea Party, which was enacted by the Sons of Liberty. It was a defiance to a tax on tea, making British tea the same price as the more popular and cheaper Dutch tea, and this happened on December 16th, 1773. Next, we will look at the start of the Revolution. The first act towards the beginning of the Revolution was the First Continental Congress meeting in September of 1774. Important founding fathers at this meeting were George Washington and Samuel Adams. They met in Philadelphia and discussed the plans of moving forward to declaring independence. The next event that occurred was on April 18th, 1775. The British marched on arms, and this is where the famous saying of the British are coming from Paul Revere and the other raiders and patriots who let the colonists know that the British were coming so they could retreat or, in a sense, fight back. The next day after this, the Battle of Lexington and Concord occurred, and this is known as famously as the shot heard around the world. As history mentions, they don't know who shot first, whether it was a colonist or patriot or a lobsterback, but we do know that this was a major spark in the starting of the Revolutionary War. The first major battle was on June 16th, the Battle of Bunker Hill. This was a major win for the British Army, but was just the very beginning of the Civil War. On July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress declared independence through the Declaration of Independence, which was sent off to the British government. Next, we will jump forward, skipping over a few battles, to the Battle of Saratoga, which was viewed as the turning point of the war. From this time between 1779 and 1781, there was a lot of standstill. You had treasonous acts by people like Benedict Arnold and others. And the last part we will cover for events was on September 3rd, 1783, which was the day the Treaty of Paris was signed, which was when the British government finally recognized the United States as its own independent country. Next, we will look at the building of a nation. The first government formed by the founding fathers was the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation ended up failing because it did not have a strong central authority. This was tested through the Articles of Confederation not being able to fund certain programs, having a lackluster amount of money, and through rebellions that proved the government was too weak. To address this, the founding fathers of the United States of America had to come up with a second form of government. On April 30th, 1789, the second government was formed under the Constitution, which was established on the same day and elected George Washington unanimously as the President of the United States. This was not a position that George Washington really wanted, but he recognized for his country going forward that he would have to do what was best, and he was a patriot in that way of sacrificing his happiness for the common good of his country. Now we have to look at with those events of creating the nation, we have to look at how the United States has been able to have been preserved for many years. As we all know, the United States has faced any challenges like any nation. The challenges faced vary from wars to rebellions to mistakes made by the government in the forms of slavery and other acts like that. But the important thing to mention is the elected leaders of this country, the presidents, senators, representatives at all forms of legislature, and Supreme Court justices and other justices in the judicial branch have, for the most part, served the common good of their country. They have protected and upheld the Constitution, and they have understood the basic freedoms that were designed by the founding fathers. They also understood the basic structure of government, which was a small federal government which granted more power to the states over the people, which was a attempt to segregate and go in a unique way of form of governing than other countries, specifically the one that the British government used, which was a strong federal government, which is they viewed it as tyrannical. And now we have to look at where America is going wrong. This has been happening through certain elected officials are neglecting the core ideas of founding fathers. This has been through they want to give big government more control, whether it be through giving them more power over the people through changing of a free market to a socialism market, having more things of everyday common life being monitored by the government, like healthcare, wanting to do away with private healthcare, wanting more entitlement programs provided by the government, and building and expanding on things like Social Security. And this is a way of reshaping the whole economics of the country and the whole government structure. This is dangerous. It is very dangerous because the founding fathers described basic ideas. They described what they intended. They wanted to keep a small federal government with more rights given to the states government structure because they felt that the idea of a government big enough to give you anything you want is a government big enough to take away everything you own. This government this idea of a bigger government has always been very dangerous because it has provided people with the idea that the government is running their lives. This is very common in places like the United Kingdom, where the structure of government over the people is very vastly greatly impacted them by forms of programs that might have failed or other ideas. The next part why this is dangerous is the systems and that elected officials want to enact, like socialism and other programs like that. They mimic failed systems. These systems were used in countries like Zimbabwe, China, Russia, Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. these are countries that have been very independent in that way of wanting to adapt to communism, socialism, ideas like that. And they have shown that these ideas do not survive. They are not unique. They are very scarce on what they can provide. They do not provide freedom. They restrict freedom. They enact government over the people. And that is what the founding fathers wanted to avoid. When you look at the United States of America, its success has come from its uniqueness. There is no other country on the planet like the United States. The United States has grown to be the most powerful and wealthy nation in the world of all time. It has achieved greatness and admirance by many countries around the world. It has been a rock for society, and that has been through the ideas that the founding fathers wanted to achieve. People like Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, they set the precedent. If you look at somebody like George Washington, who is a major role of the way the United States has become, George Washington very well could have been a king when he was first elected. People admired him that much, but George Washington walked away from that power. He wanted to settle on a balance of power. Nobody does that. George Washington stepped away from the office of the president after 2 terms. Before it was enacted as an amendment, that was the nature. Everybody wanted to follow in the lead of George Washington. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Madison, Monroe, Quincy Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, people like that. Presidents have upheld the office. They have been very, very cautious of what might change the government. They have done whatever they can to preserve it. They have fought back against governmental ideas while they have adapted things that will be successful. Other things they have fought against for over hundreds of years, like socialism, communism, limiting the rights of the people. They have expanded on their mistakes. They have opened up ideas to provide more rights for people. They have rewritten the wrongs of the past. The amount of freedom that is currently in the United States is not matched anywhere else in the world. If you lose freedom out the United States, there's no other place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. The United States is a luxury that should be appreciated, not to be changed. The United States has become a great nation through these ideas, through presidents and patriots and people understanding the intentions of the founding fathers in a way of government that they have set up to succeed. I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. If you liked the information covered in it, I ask that you please subscribe and hit the notification bell for reminders on when new videos come out. And I would like to once again thank you for your time and ask you to always keep being a patriot and just fighting for the core values of America, and just realizing that if you live in the United States of America, how much of a luxury it is to have it, and remember that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If we lose the intentions and the rights and the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers, our nation is going to become the death of a nation, and the United States of America will fail. Once again, thank you, and we will see you again next time.